Standing in line for several hours, some of the biggest announcements we've seen in World of Warcraft in literally years, and Chris Metzen openly saying, it's time to come home. Let's talk about BlizzCon 2023, baby. In the blazing heat of Anaheim, California, after 4 long years, BlizzCon once again opened its doors, but there were changes. Certainly if you were an old schooler, you were aware of those changes, and there were certain things the staff and some of the old schoolers weren't happy about. We're going to get into that here and talk about this whole event. First of all, they did everything right at the very, very start. Pre-registration opened a couple of days beforehand. You could head down to the convention center, go in, get yourself sorted, get your goodie bag, which was a backpack that had like USB extensions in it. It was very nice. A lot of people were a little upset they didn't get something collectible that they could put on a shelf, like a display. That's what they've done in the past. They've had like tankards or orc statues, things like that that you got in your goodie bag. This time it was a straight up very good, very high quality bag, but it didn't have anything in it. So people are a bit miffed about that. I can see where they're coming from. It's nice to have a collectible thing. You could also have your lanyard and your wristband and things like that you can keep from the event, but people do like a little thing to put on the shelf. But overall, I thought the goodie bag was good. Registration went perfectly smoothly, considering they run it for 2 days beforehand. We walked straight in, even with the open area to get in. Fun story though, it turned out I took my team. Blizzard were really, really cool about this, and it makes a lot of sense considering what was announced, that they not only managed to sort out a ticket for my team, but also for my wife and my children to experience BlizzCon for the first time. So huge thank you to Blizzard for that. But it actually turned out that of all the people that we managed to sort this out for, I didn't have a ticket, which I didn't realize until we got to the actual registration process, where it was like, okay, we have Nups, we have Chunky Ninja, we have my wife, we have my kids, and like, yep. You don't have a ticket though. Your name isn't down. And I think the confusion was Nups, who's our business manager, he's also called Mike, so I think the names got confused, and only one of them ended up on the list. But GG's to the Giga Chad at registration, who was like, I do know who you are. And then he's looking, he's like, and you've got things that you're doing here, which I did. I had meet and greet, and I had an interview with Ian, who's like, okay, this is the easiest way to solve this. Literally took off his lanyard and gave it to me. He was like, you take mine. It's totally fine. You take mine. I'll sort one out later on. It's all good, dude. So massive shout out to that bro, because I was stood there like, oh, this is going to be a problem. I can't really interview Ian if I can't get into the convention. But he was like, dude, it's totally fine. So massive shout outs to him to get inside. And they also had the merch open after the disaster that was the FanFest merch, which I was at last week. It was nice that the merch area was open like day before. So you could go down, you could get your merch, you could do all that kind of stuff. Although they started selling out really quickly. We registered probably like midday, a day before, and they'd already sold out some stuff. Which I've no doubt for people who turned up on the day was like, what the hell, dude? You're already sold out? We haven't even started the event yet. So that's kind of normal, though. It is something that happens, and Blizzard do let you know. He's like, okay, you can get your merch beforehand, because they're very aware. They're like 35,000 people going to BlizzCon. People do not want to walk around with their merchandise, right? Like, they want to get it, put it back in their hotel, and go and enjoy the event without carrying and lugging stuff all over the place. So immediately it became apparent, I got to go to a Blizzard mixer, which was like 4 till 7 p.m. the night before the actual con opened. This was great because there are like very little pictures of this event, despite the fact that there was like 200 plus content creators and devs and, you know, the top brass at Blizzard were all there. No one really got a phone out. And I was like, in the back of my mind, I was like so impressed by this because it has been 4 years. And obviously, back 4 years ago, we were like the top content creator, along with a lot of old school names who were now there, and we hadn't seen each other in so long, including the devs, right? That everybody just wanted to meet and talk to each other and be like, oh my god, it's been so long since I've seen you, you know? Like, I was talking to Sloopbag, Towley, and Bellula was there, and all, the list goes on and on. I got to meet all the Team Liquid players, which I've never had the opportunity to do. I've spent plenty of time with Max, but I've never been able to meet Shakib and Fired Up and Dryny and people like that, and Scott, and to just actually chill and talk to them, meeting Trills over here, and all these kind of American players that don't circulate in the EU circles, where I kind of see those guys relatively regularly. But USA, we've had no reason to go there and have some sort of get together like that. And to chat to Ian and all the other devs just chilling and having a good time. So there was no meeting, no pictures really going on there. Like odd selfies were happening with some people, but very few. I'm sure you can find some pictures circulating around, but generally speaking, all the content, all these people who are like driven by making content for people to see, phones away, just chit-chatting, just having fun, saying hi, and meeting new people, which was great. Got to catch up with JB again, which was awesome. I missed that guy so much, and Tettles and stuff like that. It was amazing. So that was a great time. And then he got to the event itself. Okay, so I'm just going to put this out there because I know some people are going to post some comments below about their experience. My experience is not the same as like the usual ticket buyer. I'm very fortunate that I have that opportunity. So I do, my experience at BlizzCon was 10 out of 10. It was. I had a wonderful time. There's a couple of things I had issue with, so 9 out of 10. But I know some people I saw in the Reddit, like, while it was going on, and learning from people inside, because obviously I was meeting a lot of people at the event, educating me on some of the problems they had. So first of all, they decided to... I know there was some change in event organization. It wasn't purely Blizzard. And that led to some changes that, again, I said some staff and a lot of the old school Blizzard people didn't like. The main one being that all the games were individually segmented off. So there was like a Diablo hall, and the Diablo hall was fantastic, right? All these halls were amazing, and they were all themed around their game. So the Diablo hall was like bathed in red light. All the cosplayers that were Diablo focused were all in there. They built it like an old evil church temple area, and they had all the new gameplay and stuff going on there. Then there was like the Overwatch hall, which was themed around Overwatch. Had all the Overwatch statues and stuff in there. That's where they were doing the World Cup of Overwatch, was in this hall. Then across from that was the Warcraft hall, which had like not only World of Warcraft, but Warcraft Rumble. It also had the Dark Moon Fair in there. We'll get to that in a second. So they segmented all the games off into their individual sections. And the reason people didn't... You might think, if you've never been to BlizzCon, that sounds like what I would expect to happen. That's traditionally not what happens. And also, I prefer the other way. And the other way is they mix all the games together. So you could be walking past like Reyna from StarCraft, and then you can go over... like a few feet and you'll see like Tracer or Widowmaker, and then you go over another few feet and it's like Jaina Proudmoore, Illidan Stormrage, and you have the Blizzard universe, so to speak, all melded together in one thing, because people generally don't just like one game. It's like, well, I only play this or I only play that. There's a lot of crossover in the Blizzard universe, and that's usually represented in some way at BlizzCon. Not this time. It was like, okay, this is Diablo, this is here. And it was quite a bit of feedback I got is like, it feels like we're dividing everybody into certain areas. Like, sure, there's usually the Overwatch arena and there's the thing going on over here, but it's all sort of in a big open mass. So you can be looking one way at the Overwatch arena, and then you look over here and there's people doing stuff with Hearthstone or whatever. And everyone's sort of melded together in a nice community type way. But this time it was like hard segmented off. There were really slim pathways between the halls, but generally it was expected you would go out of the hall, change to another hall, and go into another one, which some people didn't like. The main thing people didn't like, though, and I totally agree with this, was the decision to move the opening ceremony from, like, the primary halls, which is where they usually do it, which seats, like, pretty much everybody. It doesn't fit everybody in there, but what they usually did for the opening ceremony or any of the panels or anything like that is they have the big main hall, which sits a huge majority of people, so everybody can get in. The worst case scenario is you kind of sat at the back. And then what they do is like the tavern area or like the StarCraft arena or whatever it might be is they play all the stuff on the screens. So if you can't quite get a seat in the main hall, you can just generally go like 20 feet to your right or something like that. And there's another area where people are sat watching in real time. This time because they had no StarCraft showing at all, it was not even mentioned. Like, I don't even think I saw a picture. Did I see Kerrigan anywhere? I don't think so. I think it was on some of the merch, I think, like the StarCraft logo, but it wasn't like advertised in any real way. There might have been some reference to it. But either way, they moved it to what used to be the StarCraft arena. So traditionally at BlizzCon, you have all the halls and things like that, and then to one side is this big dome-like arena like you would expect having concerts. And that was just for StarCraft. So they have the StarCraft Grand Finals there. They'd be just people sat in there all day, every day, just watching StarCraft and waiting for the grand finale on the final day. This time they decided to move every panel and opening ceremony to there. Unless it was something really, really minor, they moved everything to this arena, and it's nowhere near big enough to see all the attendees at BlizzCon. So 2 things went wrong with this. One, it turned out that if you pre-registered like the day before with a normal ticket, or even a portal pass ticket, which was like $900, I think, $900, is that when you turned up on the day, you were pushed back to the road. So they changed how you got in. They moved security a bit further away from the entrance to create like a pure BlizzCon experience, including the entranceway past next to the hotels. That meant you were pushed back to the road, and this ended up with people queuing for like 2 hours to get in on the day. And actually, I think some people like missed the opening ceremony, queuing to get in. Some people posted on Reddit the path they took and ended up studying like people's yards outside their homes because it stretched that far to get people into the arena. And not only that, because the actual arena I'm talking about, where the opening ceremony was, wasn't big enough to house everybody, they decided to like do a raffle. So if your ticket randomly got selected, you got to go into the opening ceremony proper. However, that didn't seemingly, at least the reports I've been given while I was there talking to people, it didn't account for groups. And a lot of guilds go to BlizzCon, right? A lot of groups go with meet friends at BlizzCon. So it'd be like, I win, but like Emma and Chris and Nups and stuff can't get in, or my kids can't get in. So what they then had was like an overflow line. So you had to be lucky to be able to get into the opening ceremony. We got ushered in as media early. I got in as it was empty. And we were watching. I got in like an hour before the show started. I knew we had to be there early. I'd been told the night before that even media weren't guaranteed to get in at all, which was really interesting because it's not something I usually concern about. But the night before I was told, look, we have really limited space in this arena. So if you want to get in, even though you have a media pass, you might not be able to. Right? It's as simple as that. So you need to get there early. So I got there a good hour and a half before the show started, met and chatted to some people, and then about an hour before the opening ceremony, I went through and did manage to get in. I was at the very top, though. Like, there was maybe 3 rows left when I got in of a very small section of the arena. And I know I found out later, a lot of my friends just didn't get in, even though they had media passes. And it took, so that was an hour. About 40 minutes in, the arena was still kind of half full. And I was like, they're just going to let everybody in at this point because the stream is not going to be delayed for the opening ceremony because they'll have all, the top brass ready and raring to go. Phil Spencer is there. They're not going to start pushing this back by like 30 minutes to let people in. They're going to go. And sure enough, with like 20 minutes remaining, just like loads of people came in. And I learned later, the overflow line, they were like, okay, go. Just get inside, get seated, and get what's going on. Opening ceremony was, it was obviously a Warcraft-focused BlizzCon, right? It was like 40, a good half, if not longer, of the opening ceremony was just World of Warcraft. It was World of Warcraft the whole way. And I'm going to do a video on the main channel about like the future of WoW and what I think of that, because that's a bigger details to go into. So yeah, it felt pretty bad for people. But what also felt kind of sucky is that as the arena emptied and all the panels were there, they had to re-queue to get back in. You weren't kicked out of the arena, as far as I know. You could just stay in there, because the World of Warcraft What's Next panel was immediately after the opening ceremony. It was like 30 minutes later. I think you could just stay in there if you were already in there. But obviously, it's hot, and people wanted to drink, and the opening ceremony is like an hour and a half long or whatever. And people had already been in there for like another hour beforehand, so people wanted to go outside, get a drink, stretch their legs, whatever, because, you're in arena seating. And then they had to queue to get back in. At one point, I saw a queue. I think it was for the World of Warcraft Deep Dive, which was the second day with Ian. And I came out of the main building, because Anaheim Convention Center is split up into several buildings. And the queue, there was a queue just outside. I was like, what are these guys queuing for? Because we were heading over to the Deep Dive. And then I asked someone who was like, wanted a selfie or whatever. And they were like, oh yeah, we're queuing to get into the arena for the Deep Dive. And there must have been like, I don't know, 3,000 or 4,000 people queuing to get into the Deep Dive. I've got to be honest, I get why people were upset. I personally would have just gone, I'll watch it on stream. Because, it's hot, right? It's California. Sure, it's like the winter time, but it's still really hot, especially for most people. And depending on your health condition, standing around for that amount of time in the hot sun is not ideal for anybody. And people were just waiting to get in until they were flooding them in. Like, I would have totally dipped. I would have. I said that genuinely. It's like, I was really lucky that I had a media pass and I could get in without having to queue up. And that's when I managed to get in early, because we went really early to get into it, knowing that it was going to be busy, because the actual What's Next panel was at capacity. People couldn't get into the What's Next panel because the arena didn't house enough people. So we went really early as it was filling up. But yeah, there was a good few thousand people just stood in the sun waiting to get out. So that was kind of cruddy. But I want to say this, for the For the people whose first BlizzCon it is, who were like upset about all the lines and stuff, it's not like that normally, honestly. And I have absolutely no doubts whatsoever it will change. Like I said, I was getting feedback from all the old heads and some of the staff who were like, yeah, this isn't quite right. We tried something new. It's not quite right. We'll probably change it back to the other way. Because the way it used to be is you would just go and sit in the main hall whenever you felt like it, and there was typically loads of room to just go and sit in there. If you wanted to go and chill in there, because I know a lot of people complain about the lack of seating actually available in the arena, but because the main hall is typically just full of chairs all day, every day, you could just go and chill there for an hour if your like legs are hurting or whatever, because I think on average, Nups measured we were doing somewhere between 20 to 25,000 steps a day, and a lot of that is just stood still, like upright. You're not sitting down much throughout BlizzCon. So I would say they're probably going to change that back and move it away. They tried something new. It was a bit flashier. You know, Microsoft were there. Maybe they wanted to go for a bit more of a stylized approach, like an Xbox presentation. I don't know what the reason was, but that was it. Overall, like as the event proceeded, there was so much to do. Like so many new statues. The sword statue was phenomenal. It was really good. And playing Warcraft Rumble was actually fine. It wasn't like Diablo Immortal. People were totally fine with Warcraft Rumble because unlike Diablo, when they didn't announce Diablo 4, but instead announced Diablo Immortal, and people were like, well, where the hell is Diablo 4? If you remember that year, do you not have a phone? This time they were like, here's 3 years of World of Warcraft, or 7 years of World of Warcraft announced for you already. Chris Metzen's back. All the hype was there, and people were like, cool, and Warcraft Rumble's here, and a lot of people are chilling and playing it. My 8-year-old completely smashed S-Band at it. That'll teach you. The Darkmoon Fair, though, the Darkmoon Fair is, if you've not been to BlizzCon, the Darkmoon Fair is like an enormous part of BlizzCon. It's huge. It's one of the busiest areas. And typically, that is actually so busy, they have it in a different building. It usually has the entire second floor of Building 2 dedicated to the Darkmoon Fair. Because there's all sorts of mini games and stuff to do there that you can do throughout the weekend. There's a lot of pin trading, a lot of collectibles, loads of plushies, all that kind of stuff is going on at the Darkmoon Fair. This time they moved it to the Warcraft Hall, and there was nowhere near enough room. I managed to get in on day one because that is before the fire department showed up. And by day 2, the fire department absolutely had showed up, and we're like, okay, there are way too many people in this area. It was hyper busy in that area all day, relentlessly. And they were like, right, half the people need to get the hell out of here, and we'll have to get a queue system set up. So that was kind of put together. And I was talking to one of the staff members who were like, we did tell them that the Darkmoon Fair needs to be really big and open and spacious for the amount of people that are going to be here, but they didn't make it big enough. So again, that's something that I undoubtedly going to change for the next event. Like, these are all things that they tried, and it's like, okay, that doesn't quite work. But overall, the event was phenomenal. Like, especially the cosplayers that were walking around. I got a really good opportunity to sit down with Ian for like half an hour. That's going to be on the main channel the next day or so. I didn't ask questions about individual things. I just want to preface this with people like delves and things like that. We'll see them when the gameplay goes live. But the big message, my takeaway from this BlizzCon in general was Chris Metzen's message, which is it's time to come back home. That was obviously a clear shout out to people such as myself, and no doubt you guys watching this who are still along for this ride and weren't just watching me for World of Warcraft. In that we all left, right? You know, we got burned pretty bad, not only by BFA, but Shadowlands especially. And a lot of us, you know, sadly, and we all remember this, were like, I'm done. Unless this game changes, I'm out. And this was the big cry. It was like, we've changed. We've changed. They have to prove it. And I'll go into detail that on the main channel. But it was a clear shout. It's like, we're building this for those of you who left us. Right, this is who this is targeted at, and a lot of it is not really targeted at the diehard World of Warcraft fans. It's actually going to be an improvement for them massively, but it's very much targeted at those people who gave up, right, including myself. Which is what I'm looking forward to you guys seeing the interview with Ian where we talked about this stuff, because you know, Dragonflight is great, but one thing Dragonflight exposed is once all the chores and things have been taken away, there wasn't much content left that was like just for fun. Outside of like raids, Mythic Plus, and leveling alts, there wasn't a great deal of like actual content in the game that was designed just to go and do it for fun. So that's what's going to come out of that. Couple of things I would like to have seen a band at BlizzCon. Usually there's a band closing out. We've had like Hodor, we've had Metallica, we had Linkin Park, we had all kinds of stuff. No band this time. It was actually a much more professional BlizzCon, I think is a fair way of saying it. But I didn't feel like, the staff wanted it to be professional. Like, if you went to the hotels at night, you would see Taryn Gregory, and God bless the cutscene team. He's in charge of the cutscenes. I'm sure you've all seen the Anduin cutscene by now. Still chilling outside as he ordinarily would be. Ian was floating around in all the areas he could be. I saw so many of the Blizzard staff having a great time. Just the event itself, like the structure of it, felt much more professional and less gamey. It kind of reminded me of the videos they produce sometimes that are all glossy and shiny, but like the people in it aren't. But I was super happy to see, of course I'm happy to see Chris Metzen back, but I was even more happy personally to see that Holly Longdale and John Haidt take the stage, because it was a big deal when we filmed that video at the Blizzard campus to explain how important these people are in the game that we've loved for like 15 years. And they're really big, important people, but they're not in the spotlight. People don't know who they are. So getting them out on stage and a nice talk with them was a good move. It's not all just Ian, because it's not. Ian's not like the fucking central nexus of life through which all decisions are made. That's just not the case. There are people above Ian who make a lot of decisions and help and direct and produce the game. And, you know, it was great to see Morgan taking the stage. And Maria did exceptionally well. Like, she's such a lovely, wonderful person who spent so much time with us off camera as well when we were at the Blizzard campus, like, who truly loves and passionate about World of Warcraft. But I'm going to leave that for the main video, which is talking about the actual features and things like that. Overall, this BlizzCon, for me, it was a 9 out of 10. For some people, it was like a 6 out of 10. But for those people, this isn't me shilling for Blizzard by any means. I would say that if the things that annoyed you, especially if they were like queuing and things like that, or not being able to get into the opening ceremony, dude, I completely understand. That absolutely sucks. But I don't think it'll be that way next time. So I wouldn't like deny yourself the experience of going, because I imagine, I don't need to imagine. In fact, I've seen it everywhere. It's like outside of that specific stuff, like the opening ceremony and the queuing, the actual event, fantastic. Like so good. Got to meet so many people chilling and hanging out, including the devs and all the content creators floating around. Like, everybody I spoke to was just having the best time. So it's like a couple of things that were like, this kind of sucks. And those are the things that I don't think will be there next time, all right? So BlizzCon 2023, I suppose I should mention this. What's it like compared to FanFest? Apples and oranges, dude. FanFest was 4,000 people. BlizzCon is 35,000 people. It's a totally different experience, right? It's like 9 times bigger. It's an enormous event. You forget until you're there, and I forgot, even though I've been to plenty of the BlizzCons, just how colossal it is. It's so overwhelmingly large that until you're there, I can give an example is I didn't see any of my friends for 2 days. I saw Scripe the day before the event. I never saw him again. I saw like Annie Fuchsia at parties, yes, we sat and talked at parties, but at BlizzCon itself, I saw her once walking around. You just don't even bump into people you want to see. Like, it just doesn't happen. Like, it's really hard. So in that regard, it's just so big. Where FanFest is really closed and you see people multiple times, you're nodding onto each other, you're saying hi, and that community feel is better at FanFest, but it's because it's so much smaller. This one is a celebration of everything, and you really do, if you're looking for specific things to happen, you've got to pay attention to the schedules and things. So, apples and oranges, I love them both differently. BlizzCon is like a colossal mega event. FanFest is like pure community, pure like happiness. And again, FanFest is focused on one game, so every single person there shares in that one joy. There are people at BlizzCon who have no interest in World of Warcraft, no interest in Hearthstone, no interest in Diablo, no interest in whatever. And they are like in a different world. They're there for something else. But that's why I think merging all the games together in the old school BlizzCon format is a little bit better. All right. So thank you so much for listening, guys. And I'll see you on the main channel with the actual discussion on what was announced. Bye, guys.